Well, thank you, Chairman. Being from Arizona, we really understand where this is heading, and I'm also a healthcare professional. You know that we have to believe that there are rules and regulations that we have to look at, but government a lot of times is the problem. It's called that knee-jerk reaction. Instead of conscientiously looking at the problem and sorting it out. How does that Hippocratic oath go? Do no harm. You know, we find that over and over again. I want to direct my first question to Mr. Ruttenberg. In your testimony, you mentioned that a National Association of Home Builders, NAHB, Housing Market Index survey conducted in January of 2012 found that 69% of builders reported that qualifying buyers for mortgages is a significant problem for them. Why is this the case?
It's the same. It's a continuation of what we've talked about, how the banks are becoming very cautious, that they're having loans sent back to them by the Fannie, Freddie, and other GSEs, that to be defensive, the average loan set of documents is now exceeds 500 pages. The length of time has grown so long, the appraisals have become a problem. We have, Secretary Donovan said in April when I was in a meeting with him that he believes that the pendulum in the housing finance has swung too far the opposite way. It needs to come back in the middle. Whenever we've had problems, we tend to overreact. We've overreacted. And now if we can come back into the middle, it would be much better. We could give a good, the protection that we need, and we could focus back on what's pragmatic.
So a closer analogy, when I was going healthcare, instead of using a cleaver with these, we should have used a scalpel.
It would be as if you sent almost everybody for a CT or an MRI.
Or brain surgery, instead of maybe a dose of antibiotic. That's what I get. Mr. Hambley, would you agree with that?
Yes, sir, I would.
Do you think CFBP is on the right track?
They are in some instances, sir. In others, they are not. I think we have to be very careful about how it's implemented. The concerning things are really that there's no oversight board for them, and there's really no budgetary constraints. It's a czar system, which is concerning in itself. But we must be diligent. This committee needs to be diligent to make sure that things like the qualified mortgage that we're talking about are sensible, usable, and do not cause more problems than they create.
Well, and I'm very concerned about it. Being from Arizona, last year, we ranked second in foreclosures again. So, the housing market is a huge industry for Arizona as well as the nation. So your ability to do you think they are on the right track in regards to the ability for the repay rule?
I think it's too early, quite honestly, to say yet, but I think we should look at it very cautiously.
If they're not on the right track, how would you say they go about getting back on the right track?
Well, the right track is to sit down with all the industries, the trade associations, go over it, reach a consensus between everybody as to how we accomplish the goal, and at the same time make sure that our mortgage market thrives and continues to work well.
And it also would, I think, include the community bankers, would it not?
Absolutely.
I mean, I'm from rural Arizona. And
absolutely, sir.
That's what makes 99% of our loans out in rural Arizona.
Yes, sir, and that's why I'm pleased to be able to testify today.
And thank you for being here. How would you feel about that, Mr. Ruttenberg, as far as that repay rule?
I think that we have to be very careful. I'm very concerned that we're going to see the rules for the first time in December, and they're supposed to be implemented in January. That we wish we would be more active in the conversations, as you alluded to. One of the things for the qualified mortgage, we very much support the safe harbor as opposed to rebuttable. We believe that they need to be prescriptive, pragmatic, and something that lenders can do and feel comfortable in, and when they have the comfort, we will see lending become more abundant.
I know I want to kind of skip ahead here because I'm limited on time. In regards to, I put myself through school as a contractor builder, so I understand a lot of that aspects. One of the things is the A, D, and C type of loans in regards to contractors buying and financing a house and a start. Tell me, how do you see revamping that, or do you see that as being the ability to kind of jumpstart our economy in home building?
There's no question that the small, medium-sized builders need A, D, and C to be able to compete with the larger builders, that they're getting their money directly from the large banks and from Wall Street. The regulators in many parts of the country, in your state, in my state, I'm sure in my state, just tell the banks you cannot do any more lending. You have to continue to shrink your real estate assets. And so the banks are not able to loan to the builders. It's become almost non-existent. And it is starting to ease up just a little bit, but not enough to take care of the demand because the inventory of new homes is at an all-time historic low, both percentage and by units.
Mr. Hamley, I'm going to take one more second. The analogy was always made to me that sometimes it's that loan that's made in tough times, probably with not probably the right information or the best information, that actually is the best loan given. Is that something that you would agree with, that a community bank is much more apt to be able to make that right decision?
Yes, sir, I would, and many times that is exactly the case. Not always, but most of the time. It gets to the character issue I talked about earlier and the judgment call that we make.
It's that area looking in their eye and understanding exactly the fortitude about how they're going to repay that.
We know what they're going to do. We understand our community. We know what the impact to the community will do, and we have a pretty good feel as if it will work or not.
The gentleman's time has expired. I thank